Conundrum over the Russia-Ukraine ceasefire continues. The Ukrainian Foreign Minister, Andrii, Sybiha, has said that Ukraine is ready for more peace talks with Russia. However, he did not reveal a specific date for talks. He reiterated Kyiv's call for a meeting between Russian and Ukrainian leaders, saying it would be the most effective step to help agree to a ceasefire. As per reports, Ukrainian Foreign Minister also further repeated his warnings that Europe needs to face the threat of Russia and urging the EU to adopt further sanctions against Moscow. Let's in fact listen in to what the Ukrainian Foreign Minister had to say.
Було б добре, якби в цій зустрічі взяли участь і інші лідери, передусім президент Трамп, наші європейські колеги, президент Ердоган. І ми вважаємо, що саме така зустріч може дати якісну зміну щодо досягнення передусім перемир'я на суші, морі, в повітрі.
This came as plenary talks between the foreign ministers of Poland, Ukraine and Lithuania took place today to mark the 5th anniversary of the creation of the Lublin Triangle. Okay, we're now joined by Sander van Hoorn, who is a former EU correspondent. He joins us live from Amsterdam. Thank you very much for joining us, Sander. What are your thoughts on the current state of this conflict? Is there any optimism of future talks, future direct talks, and any credible possibility that peace negotiations will move forward? Previously, we've seen 2 prisoner swaps from the direct talks between Russia and Ukraine. Is there any optimism of anything further going on here?
Swaps, I wouldn't get my hopes up too high. Of course, we have the Donald Trump 50-day deadline until tariffs are imposed. Not clear what tariffs he was talking about, but we will have to see if that puts some pressure on the negotiations. However, the key sticking points are still there. Basically, Russia wants to keep the territories it holds right now, and maybe even more, and Ukraine does not want that. So it's also about questions like to what extent is Ukraine demilitarized? To what extent is it allowed to reach out to EU and NATO? Those are all things that still have to be hashed out. And I think up until the moment that that becomes a reality, the 2 leaders will not meet. They were supposed to meet a little over a month ago in Istanbul, Turkey, but that meeting has not happened. So I don't really see any reason for optimism right now.
Sander, I apologise. Please stay with us. We will come back to this story. However, we have some breaking news coming out of the Middle East coming in. A new ceasefire has been agreed in Syria's Druze majority city of Sweda, according to the Interior Ministry. The truce comes after days of intense violence that killed over 300 people. The deal includes deployment of security checkpoints across the city. The announcement follows a previous truce collapse just a day earlier. State media says authorities hope the move will help restore calm and avoid further bloodshed. However, skepticism remains over how long this latest ceasefire will hold in the face of growing tensions and pressure from both sides in the region. Just wanted to repeat that breaking news there. A ceasefire has been agreed in the southern Syrian city and Druze majority city of Sweden, and we will bring you all updates in regards to that ongoing situation. Sander, apologies for that. I wanted to come back to you now. To what extent do you think these direct leader-level talks between Putin and Zelensky could accelerate a lasting ceasefire, given the current dynamics, these escalating aerial strikes mainly that we see, striking the civilian cities of Ukraine? Today we saw drone strikes in Kyiv as well as other cities across Ukraine. What are your thoughts on the possibility of diplomacy here?
Look, this is what Ukrainians, I've been there many times during the war, they will tell you that this is nothing new. Putin does not want a ceasefire, he wants all of Ukraine. And they say we've seen it after we reached a ceasefire after the Crimea invasion. Putin came back. So if there is a ceasefire now, we want to have security guarantees that he will not withdraw, regroup, learn their lessons to be learned, and come back after a couple of years to take Kyiv. So there's like this skepticism among Ukrainians about any ceasefire talks not offering guarantees for the long-term stability of Ukraine. So that remains a sticking point, and until sticking points as big as this arise, I don't see any meeting between the two leaders yield any success. And now with the announcement of Donald Trump supplying Patriot missiles, I think the incentive for Ukraine has become a little bit less to engage in talks that do not offer those security guarantees in the end.
Sander, we've just heard from Ukraine's foreign minister urging the European Union for further sanctions in compelling Russia. How effective do you think this will be to bring Moscow to the negotiating table and to push negotiations towards a ceasefire further?
Well, it's the 18th sanctions package of the European Union, and so far it hasn't really harmed the Russian economy. It hasn't brought Russia to the negotiation table. So you can wonder if this will however, signal Moscow that the European Union is still able to make unified decisions on sanctions towards Moscow, so that it's still Moscow has not succeeded in dividing the European countries. Slovakia was the last country in the European Union to block this package, but apparently they have yielded their resistance to this package. So yeah, it's a signal of unity, but it will not bring the conflict to an end sooner than without this package, I think.
Yes, Sander, and of course yesterday we saw the announcement of Donald Trump giving a 50-day deadline and the possibility of US enforcing sanctions on some of Moscow's closest trading allies. How effective do you think those ones will be? And what do you think of the 50-day deadline that Donald Trump has imposed?
Well, in Ukraine and also in some European countries, they worry that this signal of those 50 days might be interpreted by Moscow to keep on bombing, at least with impunity, for the next 50 days. So that's the worry here. And the people wonder what those sanctions Donald Trump is talking about, what they might entail. So there's a lot of ambiguity, a lot of uncertainty there. What you see now also with the Ukrainians saying that they are ready to negotiate is kind of like the blame game. They don't want to be seen by Donald Trump as the ones blocking for negotiations on a peace deal. So I would think that in the days to come, you would see Russia also taking the stance like we're ready to negotiate because they don't want to be seen by Donald Trump as well as the one blocking a peace deal. So it's more, I think, about appearances than that countries are actually hoping to negotiate in any serious matter anytime soon.
Sander, what strategic or political factors do you think might be driving Moscow's reluctance to commit to a specific date for these renewed talks? And how should Kyiv adjust its diplomatic approach in response?
To the 50-day deadline of Donald Trump, you mean?
Yes.
Yeah, well, I think the first step we have already seen. They are telling Donald Trump, look, we're ready anytime that negotiations are scheduled. We will be there, we will negotiate. That's the basic level of diplomacy that Kyiv has to do, like not being in Donald Trump's crosshairs as they have been before. They are quite happy right now that they at least get new Patriot systems paid for by the Europeans to defend themselves against Russian missile and drone attacks. So they don't want to lose that support. They don't want to have Donald Trump look more towards Putin in the days to come. So they will have to keep playing this game and basically see if Russia will change its stance in the negotiations, if they want to, for example, compromise on the areas they hold so far. And that remains to be seen, if those basic differences between the two countries, if they can be bridged in the short term, because otherwise those 50 days will pass without anything happening. And then the world is going to look at Donald Trump, where he places the blame and what action he will attach to that.
Sander van Hoorn, thank you very much for your insight and joining us on the programme. It's been a pleasure having you. We now move over to the